What's up, everybody? The great Adderall shortage of 2023. Let's talk about it. I'm Johnny Ray.
I'm Kyle Durrett.
And we're here to talk about something that has been happening across 2023 and in early stages of 2022. We are just bringing you our opinions, so don't take this stuff to heart. Maybe listen and give yourself an opinion of your own, create your own way of thinking about a specific topic. But again, these are just our opinions. I am not a medical doctor, and I know for a fact you are not.
Not at all.
Not even close, right? I'm going to read an article, and then we're going to discuss it. So let's see. Total Adderall prescriptions in the U.S., America's Adderall shortage. This comes from an article called Axios from a lady named Erica Panday from November 15th of 2022. You're sitting like a soldier statue. Okay, here it is. This is an important topic. All right. Prescriptions for stimulants have been skyrocketing as it's become easier and easier to get a diagnosis. Why it matters. The rise in demand for Adderall has triggered a shortage of the drug, raising fears that some people can't get medicines they rely on, while many others may be misdiagnosed. Some are experiencing stimulant withdrawal symptoms. Others are turning to unregulated dealers to replace their prescriptions. They're hitting the streets. They're hitting the streets to get their fix.
They've always been on the streets.
They're from the streets. And others still are turning to illegal and highly dangerous drugs as substitutes. By the numbers, a whopping 41.4, it's even more. 41.4 million prescriptions were dispensed in the U.S. in 2021, up more than 10% from 2020, according to the IQVIA, a health research firm. What's happening? Getting a diagnosis of attention deficit or hyperactivity disorder, or ADHD, which can be treated by Adderall and other stimulants, got significantly easier during the pandemic.
Yeah, like Ritalin and stuff like that.
Why do you think that is?
I don't know why that is. I'll have to think on that.
You think like the mental health thing, maybe the chart's been easier? It's like, oh, are you sad? And they're like, yes, you're sad. You have attention deficit
Actually,
disorder.
A lot of things were easier during the COVID pandemic with regarding to get medicine and stuff like that. You just had to basically phone it up.
That's an interesting perspective. And I can say that I agree with that. I feel like when people have something going on in their lives, they turn to a pill. And again, that's why we're talking about this. No doubt attention deficit disorder is a real thing. There's no doubt that people suffer from ADD, ADHD, depression, anxiety. Again, remember what I said in the very beginning. These are my opinions, and my opinions are my own.
And if you backtrack just a little bit, I'm talking about like getting help from DSHS and stuff like that, like during the pandemic. All those offices were closed. All you had to do was call them up. And, it was the same thing with doctors. Hey, my kid's sick. Well, what are their symptoms without even having to see them? You could do a Zoom meeting or whatever. I'm assuming probably the same thing with behavioral health. Call up your doctor. Hey, having trouble focusing. Here's an Adderall subscription.
Do you think people are having trouble focusing now more than ever because of what has happened in the pandemic? Or do you think it just has to do with instant gratification, social media, attention spans? I mean, let's be real. If a kid sits in a classroom and the kid plays video games all day long and he's not out there exercising, riding a bike. Do you remember when we were young, bro? We used to be like outside all the time. And like the family would be like, go outside and I don't want to see you at dinner. But if you're late 1 minute to dinner,
you mean until dinner? Yeah.
Yeah. Until dinner. Yeah. Okay. So do you not see that nowadays? Now I see a phone in every kid's hand. And I believe like instant gratification has a more of a serious effect on why people are being prescribed more. Do you agree with that?
Yes and no.
Okay.
I agree with what you said, but I also think that as an adult and as somebody who went to college and as somebody who may or may not have allegedly done Adderall, he's
done Adderall. We both have.
It's a cheat code,
Is it?
It's a cheat code to school for sure. And so, yeah, if you could, I think some people are of the mindset that if you could get, free drugs to make things easier, then, why wouldn't they? But at the same time, I do agree with the phones and with all the lack of outside activity, and that may correlate to the media and the safety issues for kids and whatnot. Like when we were young, we never worried about being kidnapped or whatever. Our parents probably were like, "Ooh, I hope that happens."
I was. But it's because I was really awesome. I thought like people were seeking me out. You know what I mean? They're like, that guy is definitely, what does it say? It says, so I have ADHD, autism. It's hard to get diagnosis now, especially as an adult. I don't know. To be honest, I just feel like, okay, and how do I explain
I think
this?
they're telling us that it's hard to get diagnosis now.
Yeah, I don't know. It says Wasted Chicken, which is a great name. That's a great label name. But anyway, so let me get back to this. Okay, this is important. Okay, I believe there's a spectrum. I believe I hate the one way or the other. You're either an addict or you're not. I hate that. It doesn't make any sense. Okay, there's a spectrum. I believe we all have ADHD. Oh, is that a big surprise? Because you mentioned people were getting overdiagnosed. Yeah, I read an article that talked about people getting overdiagnosed. So that wasn't me saying it. That was coming from an article. The reason I read that is because that in particular is one of those things that, again, we all have ADHD to a certain perspective. I think we all have. Yeah, exactly. I wasn't paying attention. It's one of those things. We fall on a spectrum. So again, why is it being overregulated? It's harder for kids to pay attention in school. They're not getting enough exercise. I believe diet plays a role. I think there's all sorts of reasons why Adderall is getting prescribed to people with supposed ADHD.
I read an article about the difference between physical education nowadays versus physical education in elementary school and high school versus in the 50s. And our dads and our, maybe grandparents were really having to go through the ringer physically and doing a lot. They had to be tested. They were, like ripped guys. And nowadays it's like, we're going to have dance class. We're going to have dodgeball, but
climb the rope,
but you can't hit the other kids,
Yeah, climb the rope. I remember when climbing the rope was a thing. Okay, what do you do to animals that are like too cooped up and too much? You run them. You put them on a treadmill, or you take them for walks, or you take them outside. Of course, we're going a little off topic. Okay, I believe there is nothing wrong with talking openly and honestly about mental health. I believe people suffer from things, all sorts of things. I believe there are kids that suffer from severe ADHD. But again, these are just my opinions. I believe it is very easy for a doctor to prescribe something to somebody rather than taking the time to get to know who they are and what goes on in their lifestyle. I would like to see the assessment process. I would like to see when I go in and say, hey, I'm having trouble focusing. If they ask about your diet, if they ask about your exercise, if they ask about, are you having problems at home? Do you have both parents in the home? I want to know about those kinds of things, right? And then if they're still having trouble focusing, then I would go to the ADHD medication or Adderall. Well, now remember, Adderall is an amphetamine, okay? So it's an amphetamine, so it's a stimulant, right? What other things stimulate you? Coffee stimulates you. Methamphetamine stimulates cocaine. You, right? I know guys right now in the field that I'm in, I'm not going to give any names, but they take Adderall and they're not prescribed. And they take Adderall, it's not him. And they take Adderall right now to get stuff done around their house. They take Adderall to study things in college. They take Adderall to work out better at the gym. They take it, but they're not prescribed it by a doctor. So when people and kids who have been diagnosed with ADHD, for instance, can't get their medication, that is a very interesting thing. So now we have this massive shortage. I'm going to read the shortage article. Should I read the shortage article?
If you want.
Should I? Okay, here. Let me read the shortage article. It's interesting. So that article that I read was from November of 2022. Now we are in March of 2023.
Well, while you're looking that up,
I
want to go back to the doctor's process.
Okay.
When you go to the doctor, they give you paperwork. Now, let's say you're there for, I don't know, a kidney stone. You're going to get those.
Thanks for getting
you're going to get those that packet or whatever, that clipboard that will address mental health. But that's basically it for right there. Are you feeling depressed? Have you thought about suicide? Blah, 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 blah. It's like, you're not going to pay attention to that because you're not there for that. Right. I don't know what it is as far as like the actual mental health thing, because I've never been there for mental health.
Do you think people ever just have bad days?
I have lots of them.
Do you ever think that you're just like having trouble focusing because, I don't know. It's tough to focus.
Yeah, maybe you miss your kids.
Yeah, or maybe something else is going on in your life. Goose, you're gonna drive me nuts. That's why you can never go like cat. Gosh dang cat. Yeah. So again, I think people have bad days. I think people have trouble focusing. I think that the assessment process needs to be more vivid. It needs to be more clear. It needs to be more extensive. I don't like the fact that you can go to a doctor and say, I have a sad day, and they give you on depression medications. Well, you're depressed. And you're like, no, I'm sad. You can be sad and not be depressed. I suffer from anxiety. No, you're just worried about things in life, which is normal. Why are we getting at an exponential rate? We are growing in higher percentages of people prescribed for medication. Why? That's the question. That's why I brought up this topic. That's why I want to talk about the Adderall shortage. Because here you have, this is what I picture. The Adderall shortage starts happening, right? And there's just all these people not knowing what to do. Right? They're just like, I can't stay focused. I don't know what to do. So what they've done is they've gotten everybody on this medication, which has helped them, helped some. Also, people are using it illegally, and now they're out of it. Well, what are the
laundry's piling up? Lawns aren't getting mowed. Garbage isn't getting taken out. I mean, society is crumbling without this drug.
It's crumbling. Now, take that to another level. Take that to other drugs that people are on. Say Xanax for anxiety. Say depression medication. Benzos.
People aren't sleeping.
People aren't sleeping. Again, what do we look at as far as what addiction is? What is chemical dependency? What is substance abuse? Do we often like to make a decision in our brain that because it's prescribed by a doctor, that doesn't mean that it's not an addiction?
Absolutely.
We like to correlate things that like, well, this was told that I need to have by a medical professional, and this is why I need to take it. Again, I'm not a doctor, so I'm not telling you to stop taking these medications. What I'm simply saying is be a free thinker and try to listen and try to understand and try to learn in the situation.
At least open your mind up to the possibility that maybe you're just having a bad day.
Maybe you're just having a bad day. And I know people right off the bat who need Adderall. I do, but I also know people who abuse it. So again, they're on the spectrum, right? When you think about chemical dependency in its definition, what is that? It's dependent on a chemical. It's in the words, right? It's chemical dependency. So if you're dependent on a chemical to function, whether that be alcohol, cocaine, whatever that is, when does that become a problem? When do you start looking at it as a problem? That's what we work with in recovery.
I think that where we're at in this conversation, what you're trying to touch base on is that it's really easy to distinguish like somebody who's addicted to meth. I mean, A, it's an illegal drug. B, their physical appearance is probably like, well, these drugs that we're talking about are somewhat normalized by the facade of that addiction, or I mean that prescription. I have a piece of paper, so my addiction's normalized now.
Right.
You get it?
Yeah,
like
absolutely.
I have this doctor shield that you can't touch.
Right.
Even though I'm jittery without my medicine, you know.
Right. Or my crack. I'm jittery without my crack. Yeah, absolutely.
Can you get crack from doctors now?
Well, it's just called something different.
I get it.
Let's think about the side effects. Let's talk about the side effects of Adderall.
There's
pull them up.
Tons upon tons of side effects. Cardiovascular side effects, hypertension, hypotension, low and high blood pressure.
Hypertension and hypotension?
Yes, it definitely affects your heart rate. And
stop being so tense.
Heart. Raynaud's phenomenon, which is reduced blood flow to the hands and feet.
Mm-hmm.
Tachycardia, which is increased heart rate.
Mm-hmm.
There's a mountain of sexual side effects. I won't go into those. Abdominal pain, constipation, diarrhea, nausea, appetite loss, blurred vision, dry mouth, excessive grinding of teeth, nosebleed, profuse sweating, drug-induced nasal congestion, reduced seizure threshold, tics, weight loss, bladder sphincter contraction, which can result in difficulty urinating.
Okay.
Which makes it useful in treating bedwetting. Incidentally. Yeah, there's a mountain of those. Sudden heart attack, stroke, and those are just the physical side effects. There's also a bunch of psychological side effects.
So people are like, you know what? To be honest, I'm having trouble focusing, but I don't mind losing my ability to pee. You know what I mean? Like you're like, to be honest, I much rather be able to focus than urinate the way I want to urinate. You think it weighs out? We're just having a conversation, Kyle. I'm not putting you on the spot here, bro.
I think that you know the answer to that because I guarantee you the first time that you tried it, nobody told you the side effects.
So you think that's a big problem too then?
I think that education on side effects is largely downplayed by doctors. I think that if you look at the commercials for any random medicine, you see them. They're like, side effects may include blah, 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 blah. They rattle off a whole fucking, sorry, no swearing. They rattle off a whole list of side effects, and some of them are really, really serious. Well, there's a reason they do it at the very end, and they do it really fast. It's like that fine print. And when you go to the doctor for that particular medicine, a lot of times they're downplayed. Well, yeah, that happens in clinical studies, but it's not going to happen to you.
I feel like Big Pharma rules the world. Again, these are just my opinions, and not to get on that side of my opinions, but I believe we are becoming weaker as a society. We are becoming less inclined to be able to take care of ourselves. We are reliant more on chemicals and things that make us happy rather than just being happy. And I believe it's because we live in a world that is so filled with negativity and instant gratification. And I think that what we need to do as a society is learn to go back to communicate. Communication is huge when it comes to recovery. 5R Recovery is a faith and purpose-based recovery support group, right? Support program. And what it's all about is like learning how to communicate with people and having these conversations. And I feel like just having these conversations with people, they don't exist. People have been told it's either this way, it's either this way. And it's like, what is substance abuse? We've gone over this before. But the whole thing is these conversations need to be had. And as we joke around about them and we talk about these things, it's not that we're making light of a situation that is obviously impacting and affecting people, especially children. But I also think that children have lost the desire to get out and play. They've lost the desire to be active in sports. They are very into video games and social media and phones and things that we didn't have when we were younger. So we were forced to use our mind to imagine, right? Now you just ask Google for the answers. And I think that has something to do with ADHD, ADD, depression, bipolar. I think it has to do with that we are living in a society of people who are gradually getting used to something else making them feel better rather than themselves making themselves feel better. Does that make sense? Do you agree with that?
For the most part. Some of the beginning stuff I didn't, but...
Okay, tell me, like what?
Well, like just your opinions on...
Big Pharma?
Yeah.
Tell me about it. Go ahead, let's talk about Big Pharma.
I think that Big Pharma...
How much do you know about him?
Not as much as you. But I didn't say I don't disagree necessarily with your ideas, but I would say that Big Pharma definitely has a play in every aspect. I mean, one of my philosophies is stay out of the medical system if you can, for as long as you can, because once you're in, you're kind of in. They gotcha. You're in this whirlpool of, well, how do I fix this? Well, going to throw another pill prescription at you. And because you have to take this pill for your heart, you have to take these 3 pills. So now you're up to 7 pills. And, if one of these doesn't work, then we have 3 or 4 more options. And it's just cha-ching, 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 cha-ching.
Yeah.
So essentially, like, that's kind of true. I mean, it rings true.
I feel like people become lab rats. I mean, again, I know people right now who need their medication.
Yeah.
Absolutely. There's no question. I believe people suffer from all sorts of mental illnesses, but I also think that we all suffer from some sort of mental illness. That was
I know I do.
Clever play. This guy in particular. So when it comes to like depression or like anxiety, for instance, I mean, I think we all get anxious. I think we all get depressed or have a bad day, but I don't result in a medication to make myself feel better. You know what I mean? Because that to me is drug addiction.
Well, yeah.
So we did this scenario in the kitchen earlier, and I want to bring it back up. So when do we think that it's necessary for somebody to need recovery? That's what we were talking about in the kitchen earlier. We were thinking like, okay, if your life is on the outside and on the inside, everything looks great. and you still use a substance, say cocaine, for instance, do you need help with your cocaine addiction?
The answer is yes.
Why?
Because if you are dependent on a substance in order to function in any aspect of your life,
that's the key, though. Any aspect of your life. Keep going. That's good.
Any aspect of your life. Yeah. Like if you need
Xanax,
if you need to take some Xanax to go to sleep every night, then you have a problem. Like
alcohol.
Yeah, if you need a drink in order to do anything, yeah, you have a problem.
Right. How about food?
Well,
because you need food to live, right? God, had a bad day at work. I'm eating a whole pizza to make myself feel better. What do you think?
Nothing wrong with that.
Nothing wrong with it until you start putting on hundreds of pounds.
Well, yeah, and the food addiction one is a pretty obvious sign. You know, they have you know, some pretty obvious visual signs that you may have a problem with weight, food consumption.
So it becomes a matter of health.
Well, yeah, I think all addiction is a matter of health.
Oh, really?
Well, health is a spectrum.
Oh, I love it. Yes, health is a spectrum.
Mental health, social health, physical health, spiritual health.
What about law?
What about law?
If it's against the law, so cocaine is obviously an illegal substance. So if you have everything going on in your life and you have a good family and you have a job and everything's clacking in your life and everything's going great, but you do cocaine, is it because of law that you should stop doing cocaine? Do you believe that cocaine should be illegal?
Depends on the type of person that you are. I mean, there's places in Iowa that allow their farms that allow their 9-year-old kids to drive pickups around. That's against the law.
Yeah, I know. We got up on
I'm talking about law. You're talking about law.
Yeah.
So basically law is one of those things where.
Yeah. So same as speeding on the freeway. That's not the point is that we're trying to talk about substance abuse. We're talking about chemical dependency. And I agree. I mean, yeah.
Well, I'm saying there's a gray area there. Have you ever sped on the freeway?
I have sped on the freeway. So breaking the law.
Yeah.
So you're saying that law should not play a role.
No, I'm saying law should always play some sort of a role, but I think in this aspect it's kind of irrelevant. Because
okay, so what about
if we're talking about illegal addiction, then the law doesn't play a part in anybody's use. I mean, if you're
so you believe drugs should be legal?
No, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying for the sake of this argument, like
there's no argument. I'm asking you do you think drugs should be legal or illegal?
I think certain drugs are legal already.
I know. So do you think that's a big debate in the community is legalizing all drugs, heroin, methamphetamine, crack,
really think
all that stuff. They want to legalize
I don't really
it to
think
make
there's a safe environment at any point to legalize certain hallucinogens. I mean, if you legalized acid, you'd have people going all crazy all over the streets.
So you think that drugs should be illegal?
I think that if you're going to talk about the legal and illegal ramifications of drugs, then I'm sure I have an opinion. It's just too early for me to get into it. But one of the concerns that I would have was if you were to legalize all drugs, you couldn't safely do that.
Okay.
So
why are drugs illegal?
Regulation.
Okay.
And they're dangerous.
Okay. So danger also plays a role in drug addiction.
Let's talk about alcohol. Alcohol is one of the most dangerous, most poisonous drugs that there is, and it's legal.
Exactly.
But it's heavily regulated.
Right.
So that's what I'm saying. If you're going to ask me if I want to legalize drugs, then we have to get into the talk of each individual drug and how we're going to regulate it.
Sure. Or what about just making it until you had to be 21?
Then we get into the point where it still needs to be heavily regulated because we have people going to the acid store to buy acid and then driving.
So I wasn't saying there should be a store. You want my opinion on this? You ready for this? Oh gosh.
Am I?
Yeah, I don't know. Are you? I don't think you are. So I think illegal drugs should stay illegal. Why? Because I think illegal drugs results in crime. It results in theft. It results in domestic violence. It results in murder. It results in rape. And it results in all of these things that coincide with it. Do I think that somebody who has a cocaine addiction but has his family in order, I believe he has his family in order and he does have a cocaine addiction. That's where law comes into over health, because legally he is not allowed to use cocaine because it's against the law. So I would definitely say that this person needs help. Now, again, alcohol. Let's go to this one. This is a great topic. So alcohol, if you have everything in your life going for you, take care of yourself, you have a family, you're married, you have everything in society's eyes, you have everything going for you. Should you be allowed to drink?
The law says yes.
Okay, right. So that's my whole point exactly, is that if the law says that alcohol is legal, do we make cocaine legal? Do we make heroin legal? How does that go? How does that work?
Well, we don't do anything.
Well, we vote. That's kind of we vote on these things. That's actually a really big discussion that's going on right now. And I believe alcohol is one of the most toxic drugs out there, and yet it's legalized. And do you want to know why it's legalized? It's legalized because of money. Because there's organizations like Big Pharma or big Tobacco or Big Alcohol. These are all these companies that actually make money, and all of the people who make these laws actually have their hands in it. They believe it's a freedom right. So do we make alcohol illegal?
I don't know. I mean,
I'm just asking questions.
I think if you took away people's booze, you would have the same backlash as if you took away people's guns
or Adderall.
Well, I don't think anybody's taking away Adderall. I think it's just
we're running out, bro. We're running now. What if we wrote a prescription for alcohol? Huh? Let's get into some crazy topics.
Well, I think alcohol. Well, we've already had a historical period called Prohibition.
Ooh, interesting.
Yeah, bootleggers.
The moonshiners.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
I think alcohol is extremely toxic. I do. What about weed?
Weed's legal.
Mm-hmm. In some places.
Mm-hmm.
So do you believe in the places that it's illegal, it should be smoked, or in the places that it's legal, it should not?
I believe that it is being smoked in places that it's illegal.
Mm-hmm. So if somebody was, say, get caught with Adderall who didn't have a prescription, do you think that they should be arrested for it or fined?
Well, yeah.
Right.
Because it's against the law.
I do too. Yeah. I think there has to be law and order. I think there has to be crime and punishment. I think people have to fall under the spectrum of understanding that there are rules that have to be followed. The reason I got off into this tangent is because I know I didn't even read it yet. We're not even there yet, and we're almost 30 minutes in. We could do this all day. And eventually we will, like once we get all the microphones and everything all set up, we'll have these conversations. And we'll bring in specialists. We'll bring in the doctors to talk to, and we'll bring in the pharmaceutical people to talk to.
Come back.
They may never come back. When it comes to what we were talking about with like regulations and stuff like that. You know, the war on drugs was something that really affected people. People were getting arrested and put in jail for all sorts of, very minute reasons.
Yeah, a little bit of weed.
Yeah, a little bit of weed. And then they went to jail for like 5 years, and it ended up causing them all sorts of hassle, and, laws change. What it comes down to is, for me, you've got to take care of yourself, and you've got to understand that there's risk versus reward, and you've got to understand that there is law and order, and there is crime and punishment, and there are things that, if you do them, there's going to be repercussions for your actions.
And that's why we're here, is to talk about it, educate. Because
we're just having conversation.
Because my drug education when I was younger was very ineffective.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, it had the opposite effect.
Dare.
Supposed to. Dare. So let me tell you about a substance that'll make you see cartoons.
And you're like, dude, I love cartoons.
I love cartoons. I'm going to find that.
Yeah, definitely. That's very interesting.
Yeah.
So I got another couple questions for you. So let's see. Prescription medications that bounce off of other prescription medications. So what about prescription medications that like increase your blood pressure, and then you take a medication that is for your blood pressure? And
I kind of got into this with that 7
a little bit. Yeah. It's interesting.
If you know people that are older than us.
Ooh, old is a big factor.
Yeah.
It is.
A lot of people have those little pill capsules, mm-hmm. Monday. Mm-hmm. Well, some of them have like 7 different pills in them or more, So I think that has a lot to do with heart disease and keeping people alive and stuff like that. So that falls into the category oftentimes of, those are needed medications.
There's definitely medications that are needed for sure.
Yeah, but I don't know enough about those kind of things to really say opinion here or there.
Do you think the Adderall shortage is going to get better? Do you think we're going to branch off into other things?
I absolutely think the Adderall shortage is going to get better.
Yeah.
I mean, supply and demand,
mass produce.
This is what they do is they make a big deal about it, panic the streets, squeeze where they need to squeeze the supply chain, and then release more. And we talked about yesterday whether there's still some time release around, and it doesn't really go into the specifics of what type. Does it?
I don't know. I'm going to read the article.
Yeah.
Okay, so this article is from NPR. Many people with ADHD can't get their medication amid Adderall shortage. Yeah, so the first couple questions that I have was, so I have ADHD and autism. I couldn't diagnose you with that because I'm not a doctor. And it said it's hard to get diagnosis now. I would say it isn't, especially as an adult. I would say it's easier to get ADHD medication now. That's just according to the article in which I read. And then it says, because you mentioned people were getting overdiagnosed, and I do believe people are getting overdiagnosed for anybody who's watching. A shortage of both generic and brand named Adderall began in October. That's left many ADHD patients without their needed medication. I want to go back to that first chart and show the camera. Gosh, once I figure out how to do this, technically, it'll be so much better, but I don't even know if you can see that. So there is the increase of Adderall prescriptions from 2017 until it looks like, what is that, 2021? So as you can see, there is quite a gradual increase of prescriptions, but from 2020 to 2021, you see the biggest spike, and they believe that's obviously because of COVID and people getting locked in their houses and stuff like that, which again, I think plays a little bit of a part. Both the branded and generic versions of Adderall have been in short supply since October. That's a drug that treats attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. NPR's Sydney Lupkin reports the shortfalls having a serious impact on patients and the people around them. Christina Yaris is the kind of mom who's hesitant to let her kids take too many medications. Good. But when her 8-year-old started taking Adderall, she couldn't deny the ADHD symptoms got better right away. Beautiful. I mean, there's a great representation of how the medication helps kids.
Well, and it seems pretty intuitive.
Right.
Good word. I'm gonna give my kid who is going all over the place a stimulant.
Right, but also the fact that he's probably what's his home life like? We talked about this a little bit. Yeah. Obviously, there's more to play. And then it says he was getting, why did they quote her like this? He was getting, finally able to get smiley faces. They actually said that in the article. Look at that. It's funny, finally able to get smiley faces coming home and all of that. So he was super excited because he wasn't the trouble kid anymore. He wasn't in trouble. He was actually getting rewarded. See, awesome.
Got some focus.
Right. Got focus. That's great. Again, we're not talking ill about it. Jump on me, what are you talking about? Lucan. Okay. Then she went to the pharmacy to refill his prescription, but the medicine was out of stock. She went down a list of pharmacies and asked her mom, what are we going to do now? Is what it's. Oh, wasted chicken is Jess. She meant autism, not autism. Sorry, Jess. It's so funny. Wasted chicken, Jess. Honestly, wasted chicken is your thing. Oh my goodness, I love you, but okay. Then she went to
love that name a second ago.
When it's somebody I don't know, but it's my sister. Okay, I don't like that my sister's name is Wasted Chicken. That's. Anyway, sorry for me being judgmental.
It doesn't mean wasted, like intoxicated, wasted.
You don't know what it means. I think I know what it means.
Leftover chicken.
Oh, it's chicken that we've wasted. I'm sorry, Jess. All right, I love you. Okay, then she went to the pharmacy to refill a prescription, but the medicine was out of stock. She went down a list of pharmacies and asked her mom to make calls too. They couldn't find it anywhere. The minute we ran out, he was back to, why do they quote that? Getting in trouble every day, getting up out of his seat. The teachers immediately noticed that he was off of it. The Adderall shortage started as a production issue at Teva, one of the world's largest drug makers. Look up Teva. Drug makers. It makes generic and brand named Adderall. Many makers of the drug have told the Food and Drug Administration they've been unable to keep up with the demand. See, there's your answer, Jess. They're unable to keep up with the demand. People are getting overdiagnosis. Some manufacturers say they're having problems getting a key ingredient. Adderall is an amphetamine. It's classified as a controlled substance. There's that word, controlled substance, by the Drug Enforcement Administration, which limits the amount of raw ingredients companies can get to manufacture Adderall. I asked Aaron Fox, a nationally recognized expert on drug shortages, what's going on. There's a lot of finger pointing. So, a lot of companies tell us that the reason they can't find or can't have full availability is because of DEA quotas. But DEA says that the companies haven't used all of their quota and they're not going to increase it. And the DEA says they're getting their information from their companies. She says the companies are secretive about their details. See, that's the other thing. Okay. Transparency. That's what it's all about. Like, what do you got to hide? I want to see everything, all the ingredients, what's actually going in it. I want transparency.
Well, Teva's headquarters is in Tel Aviv, Israel, so they're outside of our jurisdiction.
Oh my goodness gracious, tough to regulate that then. But anyway, so what the story was pretty much saying is that, and I think this was what date was this? This is February. So last month on the 22nd, this is what the article is. People are actually running out of Adderall now. Teva's having a tough time producing it. And again, that's one of the reasons we wanted to talk about it. So,
well, yeah. What are we going to do?
What are we going to do? I'm interested. What are you going to do? Are you out of it? Are you on it? No? Oh. He needs it. That's what it comes down to. Look at how statue you are today.
Actually, I think I'm doing pretty good, considering you're like, all over the place.
Actually, it might balance me out, to be honest. I think I need something to level me out. Balance the playing field. Well, that's our video for today. We could do this all day. We could sit here. Once we get a better setup, we'll have these conversations.
I had a blast. Can't wait to do it again.
We'll have people call in, and obviously, I haven't done a video in a very long time.
Phone line.
Get a phone line. One of the red phones like on Batman. That would be sweet. Hello. And Jess can actually, call in and we can talk to her on the phone. But yeah.
Sorry, Jess. We just thought you were.
We're going to try to do these videos like every, I don't know. I could try to do it every week, man. But when I say that schedule, it's just too tough. So
we'll get some consistency going.
Yeah, I don't know if it'll be a set time, but again, if you're interested in having communication about real raw recovery or having real conversations about stuff, I'd love to hear it. And I'd love people to be a part of. Love to bring on guests as well. Love to improve our setup. That would be kind of nice. A couple of boom mics, and we could sit here and do this kind of conversation all day. What do you think?
Yeah. We could get some actual people, some actual kids on Adderall and see what they have to
say. Oh my gosh, that's a good idea. No, it's not too bad. Anyway, we love you guys. Thank you everybody for listening. Tell your mom she said hi. She liked to tune in there.
Yeah, Mom.
Hey, hi. Mom, how are you? Love you, Mom. Love you, Joe. Love you, Jess. We'll do another video next week. Bye.